Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another episode of Mind Your Fucking Business with your host, Jeffrey Krentzman.
Thank you, Connor. Good morning. Coming to you, as always, from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Fucking Business podcast, brought to you, of course, by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project. We thank them for their sponsorship, as always. We encourage you to check out their website, which will probably come across your screen momentarily. Check them out. Use the special promo code MYPB when you go to checkout and save yourself a total of 25% on anything on the Bamboozle Project website. But in particular, if there's anything you're going to buy, go sift through the MYPB gear. Pick out water bottles, t-shirts, tank tops. You got that winter hats, which will be back in season in a couple months. Pick out what you want. Use the promo code. And we thank the Bamboozle Project as always. This is episode number 118, Ciento de Ocho on the Spanish dial, those utilizing the SAP feature of today's broadcast. We appreciate you listening in, and we thank you for your listenership as always. You can email us your questions at any time at mypbshow@gmail.com. However, we get questions all day on our Instagram page. That is the easier way to reach us. So if you have Instagram, you can go to @MindYourPuckinBusiness. Send us your NHL or Ranger questions all the time. We're always there trying to answer them as quickly as we can. And if you're listening to the podcast today or whenever on a repeat, whenever you're streaming the episode, we appreciate it. You can find us on 3 different platforms of your choosing. You could watch the video feed on YouTube so you can see the video. And you'll know that there's a special guest host here, which we'll get to in a minute if you're on video. Or you can stream it, as most people do, on iTunes or Spotify. You can check us out there. And we appreciate you listening there. So we have been off for a couple weeks. The summer months here, we take an approach, and someone actually wrote in on this. I don't know if you saw this. And we welcome Connor, I should mention, who is filling in for Dougie Sticks today.
It's great to be here. Great to see you, Jeff. Yes.
Dougie Sticks is, I don't want to say he's on vacation because he was in the studio before, but he's on assignment somewhere else doing other stuff.
Yes, he's on assignment. I'm filling in today. Hope I do a good job. I got the intro,
You nailed it. You got it.
That's the first step.
You got it. And I could see, you were trying to remember the words. I saw it in your, your face. You had it.
It's familiar. We love having you here, Jeff. I love this show. Love hockey. Love sports. I was talking to you about softball earlier. We can get into that.
We'll get into it a little later.
But yes, I am filling in today.
So you're filling in. We have been off for a couple weeks, but anyway, we take the approach here in the summer. Obviously, during the fall, we're very busy. We have the Ranger season starting, but we also do a ton of NFL stuff and weekly picks. The springtime, we're at the mercy of how far we can go with a Ranger playoff run. And then we, in June, we were on a lot.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks ago, I was on vacation. I had a work trip last week, and we're not going to I don't want to say force the issue and have us come on here and talk about stuff if there's not a lot going on.
Well, yeah. Well, you're a busy guy.
Well, I'm busy, but someone had wrote in. So this is what I wanted to bring up. Someone wrote, and it's on a comment on one of our Instagram posts. I think it's on my Catco and Lafrenière post from last week, where someone said, look, I appreciate that you guys don't just put out quantity of content that's not quality in the summer. So we're not going to just sit here every week. Now we are on this week. We're on next week, and I believe we're on the week after. So we're going to get now back into a regular season schedule because hockey training camp will open in actually 7 or 8 weeks. And NFL training camp opens in a week. So we're going to have a lot to go.
Yeah, it's that midsummer bump. We come in, it's like we're still here doing it. And you know what? It's a nice take.
And if you are a fan, and I say this all the time, so it's not the first time I'm saying this, the one sport that this show does not cover is baseball. I don't cover baseball. But if we were to cover baseball with the Mets and Yankees, there's not a lot of good to talk about there either. So,
yeah. So that's not happening.
So, yeah. All right. So we welcome you to the show. Thank you, Connor, for sitting in. So when we left a couple weeks ago, there was a whole clip that went up, and we thank the production staff here, that I said what the Rangers were going to do in free agency. And I said, look, if you think they're going to sit here and make a splash, and the example I used was July 1st, 2019, when Artemi Panarin arrived.
Yeah.
That was not going to be in the cards for Chris Drury. You weren't going to get this bona fide star or guy in his prime. But I think their approach to free agency, now looking at it 3 weeks later and we haven't been on, I like what Chris Drury did. He did a lot of low money, low risk deals. And it wasn't really an approach that I saw coming, or I really think any of the beat writers saw coming either. So let's go kind of in chronological order.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually give it to how it went down for me. So I traveled on July 1st. We were supposed to land on an airplane at 11:55. I had said to my wife, well, this is poorly timed because free agency opens in the NHL at 12.
Yes.
We landed a couple minutes early. We got in the shuttle to go to the hotel, and there you have it. Blake Wheeler is a Ranger. Now, Blake Wheeler there's some mixed things on Blake Wheeler. So let's run through some of the pros and cons here.
Mm-hmm.
The pro is that this is a low risk deal. It's 1 year and it's $800,000. So it doesn't really cripple your cap in any way, shape, or form.
No.
It's 1 year. I'm not committing to a guy who's definitely on the back end of his career. Mm-hmm. So I'm not committing long-term to him. What you don't like about Blake Wheeler is that he was stripped of the captaincy in Winnipeg. The two coaches that he's had, his last two coaches there, Paul Maurice and now recently Rick Bowness, have kind of called out leadership there as a whole without mentioning his name. Mm-hmm. So if I put that together with the fact that he was stripped of his captaincy, I'm not sure he's like the best locker room guy. Mm-hmm. Like he's not like Patrick Kane, who was brought here and even though it didn't work out, but it was like, well, you know what? He's a locker room guy and this is not going to be Blake Wheeler. But knowing some of his stats in previous years, he could be a second line wing guy. He could play on the third line. And I'm fine with Chris Drury taking this risk because it's 1 year at $800,000. It's not really hurting your cap. If this was a typical New York Ranger deal where this is a 5-year deal at $10 million, I would have been highly annoyed, as would all Ranger fans. Yeah. But you know what? For 1 year, where again, as we talk about the term that we've used in all 118 episodes, if you've listened to us, is window of opportunity. The window of opportunity for the Rangers to win the Cup is now. Yeah. For a 1 year deal for Blake Wheeler, I'm fine with that. Yeah. Now, some reason, like when Patrick Kane became a Ranger on February 28th, on that Tuesday, everyone knew he was coming, right? It wasn't official, but like you had to be living under a rock to not know it was going to happen. Yeah, that buzz. Right? It's the same thing here with Jonathan Quick. Everyone knew on July 1st he was going to come. Now, there was a clip, and I think it was in November, where Halak started really bad. I want to say he was winless in his first 5 or 6 games. And if I remember correctly, people here can check this. In those 5 or 6 games, he never had goal support of more than 2 goals. So he started badly. There was a whole clip that we made about it. And then, Halak kind of turned it around. He had a decent year to be a backup to Igor Shesterkin. I have no problem at all with the Jonathan Quick deal. Again, this is following a similar theme. 1 year, low annual commitment at a price tag of $925,000 that's going to go against the cap. So it's not a lot. Now, what some of the critics here have said, and we got flooded with this, or when I was on vacation, I was trying to like calm people down, is look, people are saying, and stats don't lie, that last year in Vegas, he was a backup and he was 16-15 was his overall record, and he had a 3.41 goals against average. Not great, not awful, not great. Yeah. But here's I'm gonna now give you reason to believe some stats that why Jonathan Quick can be a good backup. You ready? I did a little research, Connor. You ready for this?
Hit me. Yeah.
Here we go. He played 31 games last year in the 16-15 record. 31, right? I can do my simple math. My wife's a math teacher. 4 games he had a shutout. Four games he had 1 goal against, and 5 games he had 2 goals against. So that, when I put it together, 13 games he let up 2 or less goals in net for the Vegas Golden Knights. Remember, he is a backup here. If he's playing more than 20 games, we have a problem overall because then something's wrong with Igor. Right. So if he's going to play 20 games and he can win maybe 13 and go 13-7, and those stats right there at the end would give me reason to believe he could, he's fine. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. He's got Stanley Cup experience, which Ranger fans know because he beat the Rangers in the Stanley Cup in 2014. Right. And Devil fans who were in the studio outside of this room before talking smack to me know this because they beat them in the Stanley Cup also in 2012. Again, I don't have any problem with Jonathan Quick at all. And if you told me 3 weeks ago when we were on, you could re-sign Halak or you could get Jonathan Quick, I probably would pick Jonathan Quick. He's a backup goalie. Yeah. If it ends up being that the backup goalie is that important, your team's screwed anyway because then your Vezina winner's in trouble.
Exactly. Right.
So for a backup goalie, he should be able to play an amount of games. He played 31 games last year. The Rangers always target. Dan Rosen from NHL.com was on with us, says it every year when we do previews with him, that the Rangers trying to get their backup goalies to play between 20 and 25 games a year. He played 31 last year. That's totally fine. I got no problem with it.
Yeah. No.
Jonathan Quick, fine. No problem.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm not going to get into like the Riley Nash and some of these other guys that they signed, although I like the defenseman they signed for the Swedish. I think he's Swedish. That will be probably on the third pair. I don't want to get into every signing because time is limited here. Yeah, we're not going to be on for 5 hours today. But let's talk about some of the other stuff that they did. They re-signed K'Andre Miller. So they had to re-sign K'Andre Miller, and they still need to re-sign Lafrenière. I was listening last night. I want to give a shout out to our friends. They've been on with us, the Double Defense podcast of the New York Rangers. 2 women out in California. They do a great job. Last night, I was randomly on my phone when they went live.
Yeah.
And they were, kind of getting on Keandre Miller. One of them not like Keandre Miller. And some of the people, it made me think last night, you hear Keandre Miller has gotten a lot of hate for 2 years at $3.8 million in average year. So it's a good amount of money. It would probably put you into retirement, and you wouldn't have to sit next to me and listen to this right now.
I want to listen, Jeff.
But at that term, again, you're not overcommitting in years.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Now, for the people that get on Keandre Miller didn't have the best year. I will 100% agree with it. And one word that I would use that was frustrating about Keandre Miller during the season last year was turnovers. For some reason, turnovers seem to plague this guy like I've never seen before.
Yeah.
You have to remember, though, with Keandre Miller, he went to the University of Wisconsin for those that follow college hockey. He had an incredibly high ceiling when he came out of Wisconsin, Madison. And I still think to this day, he still has a high ceiling. He is young. He has not been in the league that long.
Right.
So for the Rangers to get a 2-year deal, again at a cap hit that doesn't cripple your cap, why not? I don't have a problem with this deal.
No.
What else? Here's the other thing. What are your other, and Gustafson is the other defenseman that just came to me that I was trying to think of. What else are you going to do? Keandre Miller is an RFA, right? So he's, in the league, usually RFAs don't go anywhere. What did you want to do? And I want to thank Elizabeth, who's writing in. I don't know if she was listening. That's the Double Defense podcast that I was just giving a shout out. Standing by a little inconsistent, hoping this year is better for Miller. And she's right. And she'd said on the show last night when I was listening to her podcast, she actually was the one that used the word turnovers, and that is exactly the number one problem with Keandre Miller. It's 100% right.
Right. It's like word association. What comes up when you talk about Keandre Miller? It's turnovers.
If you want to talk about him in a negative light, it's turnovers. And we give Liz credit because she said it last night. And I'm ripping off the term right now, but she's the one that gets credit because they said it last night. So I'm fine with the Keandre Miller deal. Again, you got to remember he's got a high ceiling here. So speaking of high ceilings, the generational talent, as I call him, Alexis Lafrenière is still not signed.
Yeah.
Last night? Where was I? Yes. No, it was a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Someone had said, it wasn't last night. Someone had said to me, well, yeah, they're probably going to trade Alexis Lafrenière. They're not trading Alexis Lafrenière. Matter of fact, on July 1st, all the beat writers all came out and said that when Chris Drury is fielding phone calls like, hey, are you making Lafrenière available? The answer was a consistent no. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He will be re-signed. They're not going to not re-sign him. Oh. Alexis Lafrenière, and this has been talked about on the show ad nauseum. I don't want to go down this road because I'm on repeat when I say this.
Yeah.
He needs to take the next step. I say this every single year. So you're going to give him his new contract, right? And the new contract is probably going to be, I would assume, for 2 or 3 years. I think the Rangers would probably rather 3. He may rather 2 if I was thinking about it from a negotiation point of view. But he's not going anywhere. So the Rangers, with the minimal cap room that they have left, will use it to sign Alexis Lafrenière. And then you're looking at what you're seeing on the roster right now is probably very close to the team on opening night. The only thing I can see happening, and some Ranger fans are screaming about this, but I would have no problem at all with this, is if the Rangers traded Barclay Goodrow, who came here 2 years ago from Tampa. Yeah. Because if you tell me that when they signed Barclay Goodrow, for the reasons that they signed Barclay Goodrow, which was really, well, he's won the last 2 seasons in Tampa. Right. He's got Stanley Cup experience. He's kind of a third line guy, which the Rangers need. We all know if you're a Ranger fan, the team always needs new grit, and they can't win faceoffs. So someone commented on our post the other day, which was also true. So if they traded Barclay Goodrow, I'd have no problem with it. But other than that, I think the roster you see right now, this is who you're going to go to battle with when they open up in Buffalo on October 12th.
Yeah, no, I'm piecing it all together too. And with Goodrow, I mean, is that an odd take, Jeff?
No, I don't think it's an odd take. And Barclay Goodrow is not a player that you sit there and say, well, whatever the Rangers' odds are to win the Stanley Cup today, let's say they were plus 1,800, and I don't know what they are, right? Let's say they were plus 1,800. If you told me today Barclay Goodrow gets traded, the odds tomorrow are probably still plus 1,800. It's not like they go down because you don't have Barclay Goodrow.
Right. What's that effect?
Right. Yeah. It's not a huge effect.
Right.
So we'll see. But again, I like what Chris Drury did. Now, someone said when I walked in here, said, well, why haven't they re-signed Kane yet? No team is probably going to sign Patrick Kane because of his surgery. He's probably not playing in the NHL until January, maybe, or sometime in the winter. So I don't think any team is going to sit here and put them against this cap when he's not going to be able to play. I think you're going to see Patrick Kane rehab, and as he gets closer to feeling better and feeling 100%, that's when teams are going to reach out and say, you know what, Patrick Kane. Now, the
Yeah.
last thing before we get to our guest,
Mhm.
Vladimir Tarasenko. Vladimir Tarasenko,
Mhm.
quick recap, although people probably don't need it, comes to the Rangers on a surprise move, like kind of was for Sammy Blaze in
Right.
February. And look, Vladimir Tarasenko, when he came here, if you thought you were going to get the Vladimir Tarasenko for him 8 or 9 years ago, you just weren't. That's not how the body works,
No.
right? But I thought he did okay here. Would I like them to resign Vladimir Tarasenko? If the price is right, yes. What I would not want them to do, and it seems like this is what Chris Drury is doing, thankfully, is that he doesn't want to resign Vladimir Tarasenko where it's going to cripple the cap. Vladimir Tarasenko, it sounds like from people, as he's going on to other teams and looking to get a deal, he wants more than a 1-year deal. Right. And there are some teams that maybe will do it, but most teams around the league are being smart. And it sounds like the Rangers are in this mix to say, look, we're not going to sit here and give Vladimir Tarasenko a long-term deal.
Right. Yeah.
So
everyone's really around a year.
Yeah, around a year. So Vladimir Tarasenko, if he's willing to come down on his years, and maybe I would stretch and say, you know what, if he wanted a 2-year deal, but I'm not giving him anything more than that.
Right.
I'm fine with that. Why don't we pull up the comment? There was a comment that just came in, and this is always the danger when we read comments live on the air. The roster on paper looks great of now, just a matter of whenever or not they can perform. When it gets real, hope Laviolette can get the guys the leadership they need. Yeah. I don't want to go down the Laviolette road because I'll go on a tangent again on that, which I'm sure we're going to get to in our guest in a minute. So But yes, I think the roster on paper looks good, Liz. And we were talking in here in the studio is that these people, I was talking to B-Rock outside before, or when he was in here, and I said, these people are, there are some hot takes. The New York Rangers will not make the playoffs. Now, you don't know what's going to happen. However, they still have a Vezina winning goalie. They still have Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin, Adam Fox on defense. They have a pretty good team. And there are teams in this division right now that I do not think are very good at all, like Columbus and Philadelphia. No. And I think Washington may not have a good year. I don't know that Pittsburgh's having a good year. The Rangers, they should make the playoffs. Yeah. No, they could not. I wouldn't bet my mortgage.
Well, it's like, no, it's a solid team. And it's like, we've been a lifelong Ranger fan here. We're looking good.
If you're confident, I'm confident.
I'm confident.
Yes. Well, I have to pick. We were talking also before, like the games that I need to go to with my season tickets.
Yes, that's right.
That's the next goal here in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, and what you would like to do at those games too, Jeff.
Yes. So we were thinking, and we'll
bring it up, or we could save it. Well, it's
we'll bring it up, and then we'll get to our guests. We were debating here going to some games. I don't want to say as an undefeated media family because the family here is too large. We're not getting 50 tickets.
Yeah.
But we'll take I'm sure I'll go. Maybe executive producer Pat in the corner over here, B-Rock, but B-Rock will only go if they're playing the Devils.
Yeah.
So, and kind of film some content with Ranger fans at games, right?
Yeah.
Now, B-Rock had the idea, which I like, of doing food reviews of the Garden. Like going around and because have you been to MSG lately?
It's been 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So MSG is completely different with food than it used to be. Like there is to me, if you wanted what was my A+ food review there, the Daily Burger at Madison Square Garden is top notch. Like I'm not a burger connoisseur, so I don't go around and rate stuff, but like you can get really good food. So we were thinking of, maybe taking undefeated media family, filming some content, maybe down below in Penn Station as the fans get off the train.
Yeah. What's up? Yeah. What's the vibe? How's the game looking?
How's the season looking? What are you most confident in? So stay tuned. I would assume if we're going to do that, it probably would be in the preseason.
I love that idea. It was a great idea Brian had. And tell me about it. It's like food. They're stepping their game up, we
could have some fun with Ranger fans.
We definitely could. And so get some hot takes coming in.
And get the hottest food. Figure out the hottest food.
Absolutely.
If you're going to go to the game, what should I be eating for $50?
Well, yeah, right.
Well, my son... And I love my son, and I've talked about this before. Whenever I go to a game with Tyler, it's like he wants to eat, 4 or 5 different things. But the price tag, it's not like the same price. Like that bag of peanut M&Ms or whatever you're getting is not the same at the Garden as it is in 7-Eleven in our town.
Yeah, right. It's like, buddy, it looks like the same bag. This is a different tag.
You've never seen inflation until you go to Madison Square Garden and buy some things.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. All right, so let's shift gears. We're going to bring in our guests. We're going to try and go back to... for most Ranger stuff now, as we're talking about today, and especially until football starts in a couple of weeks.
That's right. Who's our guest today, Jeff?
We are going to bring in, Matt Mugno. He is from PuckTalkCS. Now, Matt, if you go on, there's a bunch of websites these days. I can think of a couple of them that actually have people like Matt write good content, good articles on the Rangers. Fan-sided Blue Line Station is one of them. Matt writes for them, so you may recognize the name from there. You may also recognize his voice, and here's why. Now, Matt told me yesterday, and I didn't know this, that he was on the call for the Quinnipiac. They won the national championship versus Minnesota. I was watching the game. He's got the hat. Just so you know, one of our producers here went to Quinnipiac. He's in the other room, so I told him you were coming on. But anyway, he was on the call for the winning goal against Minnesota in early overtime. Like if you blinked, you missed the winning goal. And I remember watching that. So this is Matt Mugno. We bring him in. How are you, Matt?
I'm great. You guys can hear me, right?
We can hear you. Let's see if we can maybe get a little louder.
Yeah, turn up a bit, Pat. But yeah, we can hear you.
But we can hear you fine. Yes.
Let's try it now. So hopefully that's working.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic to be on today.
Well, thank you for being on. We can bring you on during the season. We always have Ranger guests as we kind of run through. We always say that the season is a marathon, not a sprint. So we will stick with that, and we'll bring you on back. But all right, let's talk some off-season stuff. Let's go back to the beginning of the offseason. The Rangers are eliminated in 7 games to the Devils after really not showing up in 3 of those games, including Game 7. Gerard Gallant on a Saturday afternoon is fired. I don't think it's really a surprise to anyone. I don't know that I love the move, but I wouldn't say I was surprised by it. Peter Laviolette is brought in, and the one thing we campaigned here on the show was, please do not go out and get a retread coach. And Peter Laviolette, if you look in the dictionary of retread hockey coach, there's his picture. Do you like the coaching hire of Peter Laviolette to lead this team?
So I think the one angle I've taken on this is that just from pieces I've written and something I've kind of just advocated like on our podcast was I think the move is fairly lateral, but I will state right now in Rangerland, a lot of the top Instagram pages, I'm seeing a lot of this. The Rangers, they have only 3 players under 30 years old. And I haven't really seen a team go to the Stanley Cup final in recent years that had an influx of young talent that they drafted and groomed. So I think that is a little bit of a stale conversation. Like, I think it's just mid-July and people are finding these numbers to kind of criticize. The reason I like the Laviolette move is simply because the Nashville Predators had the Joe Feline, Victor Arvidsson, Ryan Johansson, Philip Forsberg, and they were all very young in their career, and they led the way on the offensive side of the puck. They were a defensive team. We know Dave Poile was great at garnering defensive talent. He had the top 4 of Subban, Ekholm, Ellis. They weren't really struggling on the defensive side of the puck, and they needed some offensive support, and it came from young talent. Philadelphia Flyers, you look, Claude Giroux was a fresh player in the NHL in 2010. He scored an overtime goal in the Stanley Cup final. So for young talent, it remains to be seen, but I think he might gel a little bit better. And we've seen a lot in New York in recent time. Like Dave Quinn was brought in because AV was like a player's coach, but also a hard coach. Dave Quinn was more of a player's coach and not hard enough. And Gerard Gallant, I think, was the opposite extreme. We're seeing kind of ebbs and flows with that, right? With the coaching decisions, like coaches that will work with the talent and might not be hard enough or coach a style that's required for NHL competitive level. And I think we see that bounce back and forth a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I would think, and I would like to assume this, that when Chris Drury is going through his 6-week search to find a coach, which is another issue because Laviolette was available right away. I mean, if you like him that much, why did it take 6 weeks? But when you're going through this search, right, and you're trying to identify who do I want to lead my team right now, I would think the number one requirement or prerequisite that I need in a coach is that coach to sit down and commit to playing people like Lafrenière and Kakko more. Someone gave me a stat yesterday. One of our listeners, Chris, who's probably listening right now because he listens every week, was about the lack of power play minutes on Kakko and Lafrenière the last couple of years. Wouldn't you assume that Laviolette has a not like I don't know what word I'm looking for, but just like a missive from management to say, look, you can play the Kreiders and the Zibanejads, but you need to get more ice time for these younger kids and pull them along in their development. Don't you think that's something that the new coach needs to do?
Yeah, so here's where I think the Rangers went wrong, and I like them to, especially with Perreault, like kid looks like a stud, and he's got skating issues like Lafrenière. I think it's the mission that I've been more of an advocate of it. It's got to come from both ends. Like the players have to commit to getting better. Steve Alcat said it, and I think that was the harshest comment I've seen out of New York media in a long, or Ranger media in a long time about a specific player, where he said, like, Lafrenière, put the golf clubs in the closet, like, commit to that skating. Because coming in from the CHL, playing for Rimolski in a COVID year, he put up over 100 points, right? Like, he looked like more than generational. I know you just said at the start of the show, generational. I think he looked more than that. But I think the one knock to his talent, if you read Corey Pronman's scouting reports from 2019, 2020, was Lafreniere's skating is not NHL level. And I don't think Peter Laviolette is fully responsible for advancing his level of skating. Like a part of that does come from the player. I think I've heard a lot and talked a lot with fans and different members of the media where it's like, I personally think that some of that a lot of that has to come from the player. But Laviolette has to place those players in positions where they can succeed. And I think that's the most important thing. Like playing the kid line was fine and great, but I think you have to now, like you traded Buchnevich to create a hole in the lineup to move Lafrenière or Kakko into, and they haven't played there yet. And because of that, the Rangers have now had to make moves to fill in that right wing hole. So it's worked somewhat. I mean, they bring in Blake Wheeler. I like the move. I would actually place Wheeler on a line with Trocheck and Kreider, and I would open up a hole with Kreider and Zibanejad and Panarin to move a player like Kakko into that top of the lineup. Because I think out of Kakko and Lafrenière, I think Kakko has earned it a little more. And I think for a player like Lafrenière, I don't think his skating's at the level yet to compete against first lines.
Okay, so on the Lafrenière topic, because we talk about this guy
I bounced all over there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. On back to Lafrenière. So we talk about all the time here, the Monday afternoon in August of COVID when the lottery ball came out, generational talent, like you said, his stats, and were beyond generational. We had a EJ Raddick from NHL Network on with us in February, and I asked him, and there's a clip of it if you don't want to sift through the episode on our Instagram page, where I said, look, when we look back in 20 years, what is Alexis Lafreniere's career going to be? Is he going to be the generational talent? What is he going to be? And EJ Raddick said, you know what? He's probably going to be like a decent second line guy. That's what he'll be remembered as. What do you think? I'm going to ask you the same question because you seem to know a lot about his stats. When his career is over 15 years from now, what was Alexis Lafrenière in the NHL?
Yeah, I really think he's going to be like a second tier level type of guy. Like lately, my thinking has been along the lines of like Jordan Eberle, where it's like he came in and he was a stud and it just didn't transition the same to the NHL level. Like he didn't take his talents to that level. And I really think his skating holds that back. I think his comparisons, at the time of the draft, it was like he's above generational, like he's the next thing. But then the comparison was like Alex Mogilny, which no hate there, right? Like all respect, love the comparison, like a guy who can check hard and also score. But I don't think it's in the same class as first overall as some of the talents we've seen coming out. Like I really think I would compare him right now a little bit to Jordan Eberle, where it's like he can help a team win. He helped the Islanders reach conference final, game 7, but at the same time, I just don't see him as like the engine that's going to push the franchise forward. Granted, he's still 20 or 21 years old, but I think at this rate, he isn't coming and blowing the league up. We know that, 40-point season last year, but even if he's making these like advancements in skating and power play time, like I really see like 70 points, like an increase of like maybe 30, 40 points a year. I don't think it's going to be something that's like all of a sudden he's getting 25 minutes a night and he's, right wing. And so I would say that's the comparison I would make is probably like a Jordan Eberle where he's putting up like 60, 70 points and we're happy with that.
Yeah, and what's frustrating about Lafrenière to an extent as well, like the 2 goals I think of, the goal he scored against Detroit,
Mhm.
last year where he like danced around a guy. He kind of made a similar move in the game in Washington this year. Like the
Yeah.
talent is there,
Mhm.
and it's frustrating as a Ranger fan because if you're a fan of this team, you never get the stud. Like we had the first pick the year after Jack Hughes was the first pick, and that year we had the second pick, and obviously Kako and Hughes
Mhm.
is not really a comparison. So it
Mhm.
is kind of frustrating. So, all right, on to the current team right now. If
Mhm.
the roster right now, as it sits, is pretty much going to be what it's going to be, I would say opening night. Maybe you see Barkley Goodrow get traded. But again, as I mentioned before, I don't think that's it's not a huge problem. It's not going to change anything. Is this team the way it is built right now? Is will it be able to compete for a Stanley Cup next year?
I think what last season left was a lot of questions within the construction of the roster. Like, you have these guys, like, how much does it take to get Panarin going? And I really think a lot of the roster decisions have to be made around that. Like, the big thing that Friedman said on 32 Thoughts with the whole decision with a coach was you got to get the most out of Panarin and the most out of Lafrenière. Like, those are the guys you have to draw the talent out of. And I think Panarin's frustrating. That's a whole nother topic. But I think part of the conversation here is like the roster right now, the line construction and like the chemistry, it all has to surround like what's going to get the most out of those guys. Because I think for the most part, Chris Kreider has probably been the most valuable Ranger, I would say, on the offensive side of the puck. And I know that could be probably a hot take, and I'd love to talk about it. But I think Panarin is a 90-point regular season player. He has not proven himself in the postseason. And I think Zibanejad really was quiet in the postseason. And that was disappointing because I thought he really led the way from game 6 on against Pittsburgh on in 2022. So I think you really have to get the most out of Panarin. I think you got to get the most out of Lafrenière. And I think it comes to constructing the lineup to kind of get the engine started for those two. And I think otherwise, I don't really worry standalone on players. Like, I think Trocheck was pretty much on brand. I think Kreider was on brand, and I think Zibanejad for the most part was. So I think your top 6 was pretty much on brand. And I think the only concern I'd have is if I were to throw Blake Wheeler on a line with a Trocheck and a Kreider, because I thought Trocheck and Kreider had great chemistry, like especially in those games where we called it like rivalry week. Rangers played Pittsburgh 3 times and the Caps once. I thought they were clicking. The fourth line, great fourth. I think that's a great fourth line. Like if you put Benino, Goodrow, VC together. My concern would be the third line because it feels a little more like a leftovers line. Like it would leave Lafrenière, Hedel, and Pitlick, I would assume.
But
So I
but
think that's a
doesn't
little.
to that point though, Matt, doesn't Lafreniere like if we're ever going to give him the chance to be the generational talent or something like it,
Yeah.
he needs to get off the third line. Like let him at
Yeah.
least play in the second, and then you know what? If he's terrible, move him back down. But like at some point, the training wheels with this guy, like I just can't stand it anymore. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
not doing well, but he's also in his defense, he's on the third line. And you're right, he's got to improve his skating. He's got things that he can certainly work on. But at
Mm-hmm.
some point here, he's got to be given a chance to play with guys that are not
Yeah.
Philip Hedl and leftovers. So I want to run through some of these offseason grades. So your podcast, we're going to put it across the screen for people. I think we have it logged up. So why don't we
Mm-hmm.
put it across the screen? It is _ PuckTalkCS _ podcast. Let's see if we can pull it up. There we go. So if you're following the video feed, you can click on that, check him out. So what you did, which I like, is you kind of gave some grades to what you thought of the free agency signings. You thought
Yeah.
Blake Wheeler was an A, which I don't have a problem with Blake Wheeler. I don't know that would go as far an A, maybe B+, but again, it's a low risk. It's got a high upside. I'm fine with that. Jonathan Quick, you had as a B. I would maybe rate that a little bit higher, A-, but we're on the same page. Gustafson, B+, I think you're right on. And Benino, a B. I may go a little bit higher. Now, I know you're a college hockey guy. I am a college hockey guy as well. I went to BU, so it's unfortunate that we went to the Frozen Four, but we're out on that Thursday. So I like Benino. I think he's kind of a gritty player, but again, he's not going to be the deciding maker. So if you follow the Rangers, which I assume you do because you're listening to us, we encourage you to check out Matt's podcast. That's at PuckTalkCS _ podcast. All right, before you go, We're going to play a little game. You ready?
Yeah.
Simple yes or no question. Rapid fire. I'm going to fire 5 questions at you. Simple yes or no questions. You ready?
Sounds good.
And they all are about next season. Okay.
I'm sweating a little bit.
Sweating. Be nervous. You're in the hot seat.
Yeah.
Connor, you nervous for him over here?
Oh, you got
Connor's even nervous for you sitting over here next to me. Good thing you're not in the hot seat, Connor. All right, here we go. Will the New York Rangers make the playoffs?
Yes.
Will Alexi Lafrenière have a much improved season?
I'm going to go with no.
Will Capo Caco have a much improved season?
Yes.
Okay. Will the Rangers make it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yes.
Will the Rangers win the Stanley Cup?
I'm going to say right now, no.
Okay. I mean,
Right
I try here, and I say this a lot, that I try to be like objective. I never want to be a homer, so I would agree with you, right? I mean, they could. They have Igor Shesterkin. They've got Adam Fox. They've got guys that can score, so they certainly can. So, Matt, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Again, check him out, PuckTalk_CS. Very good Ranger podcast. You can also, as I mentioned, see him. He writes for Fansided Blue Line Nation. He has some good articles. The one that you wrote, I did read it the other day, where you gave your thoughts on the offseason. I thought was really good. And I know there are some new things in the work, so maybe when you get those new things in the work and they become official, if you want to come back on and announce them and kind of promote it, we're all for it. We're glad to have you. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you guys so much. It was a good time. Always a good time talking New York Rangers hockey.
You got it. We'll have you back, buddy. You'll be back. Talk to you soon. Okay.
Thanks,
so,
Matt.
So that was cool. A little different perspective, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's great to have that because, you see from different perspectives. You didn't think of it.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, I always say this in the off season, when the season ends and you're frustrated, right? Because you're always frustrated unless you win the Stanley Cup. So every Ranger end of the season since 1994 has been frustration.
Yes.
There's always like a part of it, like you need to step away. You need to you need like your mind to decompress.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, as you get into not the second half of summer, but like mid-July and free agency is already done, the schedule's out, you now want to like start conversing again with Ranger fans. And Matt's very good. He knows his stuff.
That was a great step back in because we do step away and get a bigger look at the end of the season because it's like this again. But, coming back in, it's still the summer, getting back into it. It was great to have Matt on and get that perspective when you walk back into it.
Now we have to, and I promise someone we're going to do this on our Instagram page. There is, I don't want to use last names. I never know if people like that, but we have to give a birthday shout out because I said we would do it. It's Jen. If you are familiar with our Instagram post, Jen is always commenting. And we want to wish her a happy birthday. I believe it was a couple days ago, but we did tell her that we would mention it today. So we send happy birthday to that. Jen is going to try and meet us at a game. If we do that game, actually that idea that we were talking about before, where we go and kind of film some content, Jen would be very, very good to be there. So we will try and get her to the Garden.
No, that would be great. And you said it's a birthday?
It was a birthday the other day.
Happy birthday, Jen. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Love that engagement.
Yes, exactly. And let's go Rangers because Jen certainly knows her stuff. So, all right, we will be back on next week as the plan. We'll be on the next couple of weeks. And then I think like scheduling wise, maybe there'll be a week here in August.
Right.
I believe doesn't Undefeated Media shut down for a week?
We do take vacation. We're always working hard here. But the summer bump that we're doing right now, Jeff, is needed because you still check in. Like you're talking with Matt, you still step back in what's going on.
Yes.
As we come
back.
Well,
thankfully with hockey, you have free agency July 1st. So you get to kind of.
Yeah. And it's, it's summer. It's like this is opposite of hockey. Yeah.
But what will happen once we get past the Undefeated Media vacation schedule that you guys all have
early August
is when we get back to it, we roll right into football. Yeah. Right. So we're going to have our week 1 picks.
That's right.
Before you know it, because we always have our weekly picks, which will be interesting this year because the amount of people that now follow us on Instagram, I'm sure every single week will comment about, what do you mean the Jets +4?
Yeah.
What are you, an idiot? What are you doing? So we'll have football to come back. We obviously cover a lot of fantasy stuff as well. We do have some really good football guests. We are working on actually having a really, I don't want to say he's going to be a weekly guest because he wouldn't be weekly, but a pretty well-established guest of one of the New York teams that be on kind of a regular spot here during the football season, which
That'd
would be
great.
good. And I'll give it away by saying that he would have been a good guest to have on yesterday with the Saquon stuff. So you know what team he does cover.
There's a hint.
So we'll have him on. We have some new sponsorship stuff coming up. You're going to hear about in a couple of weeks. One of them may or may not blow you away. That's all I'm saying. If it comes to fruition, but it sounds like it will. So we'll be talking about that in a couple of weeks. So there's a lot going on here. I thank you for stepping in today.
Oh no, thanks for having me. Let's do it. I'm excited. I'm very excited. A lot going on with that Mind Your Pucking business.
So you have now. There's been 118 episodes. You have co-hosted 2, right? Because you did.
No, you're right.
You did 2. This is the second. You did one last year. Similar situation.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you know what? It might have been
3.
No, but you may have been in here when Doug had the baby.
I did fill in when Doug had the baby.
Right.
And another time, I think when he tore his Achilles.
Yes. So you
look,
you are
he's fine today. He's just, he's in a meeting. He's out the studio, but it's nice to fill in and play co-host.
So we were talking, and I don't know if I should say this because this is like conversation that was, Doug and I yesterday on the phone. But we were saying, we were trying to figure out like who could co-host. You obviously are more than adept to do it.
Yeah.
But the other thought was like, do I bring B-Rock in here and co-host a show where it's just Ranger Devils? But for 40 minutes, it's to go at it Ranger Devils probably wouldn't be good. And right now, being that they just eliminated the Rangers, I'm not sure I want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And the other one,
let's not say no yet.
Wait.
Right.
The other discussion we had yesterday was yes, you're pointing in the direction, is what if we had executive producer Pat come out from the corner where he
other
runs
side of the camera,
where he's running the board and everything that he does over there and all the Instagram stuff, and have him come on, because Pat's I would say Pat's forte or his expertise, if he was going to speak on the show, would be football. So we're kind of and he's a huge Giant fan.
Oh,
so sure. This would have been the week where the Saquon, just to let him kind of loose, let Pat go.
Yeah, we got. I mean, the take, we talk a bit about it, but it's like leave that open because you could, have Brian on in the season. Let's not write it off. I think that'd be funny, and with Pat as well for football.
B-Rock was on the show once. I think it was
Brian jumped in. Right?
Brian jumped in.
Yeah.
Brian, I think, sat in this year right before Ranger Devils. I would assume that's when we had him. I remember him sitting there.
Yeah.
He's out in the hall. We can ask him later. Pat has come on, he'll come over here and make cameos here and there. But I was thinking what if you just had Pat now? So when Doug and I talked yesterday, the Saquon thing wasn't official yet.
Oh, that's right.
So we didn't know what was going to happen.
Well, if it was, it would have been who do we ask?
But my thought is now, knowing that he may Pat doesn't have a running back, he would have been interesting audio today.
Yeah,
so
producer's furious right now.
We'll see. I think in the fall we'll get Pat on.
That sounds good,
because Pat's not going to want to talk about his Yankees, that's for sure. But again, we don't cover baseball, we know that. So, but even if
we don't want to talk about baseball, I stopped watching, man.
You don't want to play that. So, all right. So, thank you for filling in. We thank the Bamboozle Project as always for their sponsorship of our show. Check them out, thebamboozleproject.com. Use a special promo code. Save yourself 25% off your entire order, and that is MYPB. Go on the site. There's a ton of MYPB gear. The summer gear is there. And before you know it, like I said, my number one recommendation, if you're going to get anything on that website, is the winter hat is amazing. It is awesome.
Yeah.
Get the winter hat and you can save yourself 25%. We should be back on next week. In the meantime, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach us at mypbshow@gmail.com, or as you guys always do, you can hit us up on Instagram. You can DM us. You can comment on our stuff, what you agree with, what you disagree with. There are some clips. Now, we were off for the last couple of weeks, but we did post what Ranger was under the most pressure clip last week. We posted that. We ran through what the Rangers did right with their assistant coach hires, because whether you like Laviolette or not, you've got to like the 3 assistants that they hired. I don't know how you could be upset about the 3 people that they hired. And we also posted a clip analyzing the Ranger schedule. And then we also had our 4th of July barbecue draft, where we did a draft selecting 4 rounds of barbecue food, which, again, I still believe my menu was far better than Doug's. I don't even think it's close. I don't need no tortellini salad in the first round, as someone pointed out. Who's wasting tortellini salad in the first round? So we'll have some clips up this week. I believe we have a non-hockey clip going up maybe today, the most underrated movie of all time, which will probably surprise you what we say, but I'm right on it. Trust me on that. Yeah. So we appreciate you listening in, and we will talk to you next week.